time for science again. I hope you're enjoying as much as I am learning about these animal adaptations. And so today we're going to continue our study of animal adaptations, one of my favorite things to start to study about in science. And we're going to do it with a digital lesson today. So remember yesterday, sorry guys, I had a phone call. This is the third time I've tried to record this lesson, but that's how it goes. So it's okay. It's part of being a virtual teacher. Lots of phone calls. Well, as we were talking about animal adaptations, behavioral adaptations, a way an animal acts that helps it survive, and physical adaptations, something on an animal's body that helps it survive: its fur, its claws, its wings, its beak, even its eyes. And those are anything on an animal's body that helps it survive is a physical adaptation. Anything that it does is a behavioral adaptation. So we're going to learn all about that some more today, learn more about that today. But anyway, as I said, I really enjoy learning about animal adaptations. This is a digital lesson, so it's not in your book. Just listen and pay close attention, because you will have a vocabulary assignment after this to do today. Excuse me. So make sure you're paying attention and listen to the entire lesson. Here we go.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have a feature of another animal? Speed like a cheetah, wings like a falcon, or fins like a salmon? Different animals have unique characteristics. Take a look at this penguin. By clicking the highlighted areas, you can discover just a few of its unique features. When done, click the Next button to learn more about how other animals are uniquely adapted to their environments. This penguin's beak is long, straight, and pointy. Does its shape remind you of a spear? Perhaps the penguin uses its beak like a spear to catch fish. Penguins are birds, but they don't fly. At least, not in the air. Some people describe their movement through water as flying. Their unique wings look different from the wings of most other birds. Penguins' wings are called flippers. Their flippers are rigid and thin, and they help penguins move through the water quickly. Do you see any similarity between the flippers on the penguin and the ones on dolphins? The body shape of this penguin is long, oval, and curved on the belly, kind of like the shape of a toboggan. In fact, some penguins do get around their snow and ice-covered environments by tobogganing on their bellies. Imagine getting to toboggan on your belly to school on snowy winter days. Brr.
Well, they're not talking about the type of toboggan we say. That's the kind we put on our head. They're talking about a snow sled. So maybe you've seen one of those roundish snow sleds that are curved on the bottom. That's what they're talking about. It's about that kind of toboggan, more like a snow sled. All right, here we go.
Welcome to the lesson, How Are Living Things Adapted to Their Environments? In this lesson, you'll learn how physical and behavioral adaptations of living things help them survive in their environments. The vocabulary words for this lesson are environment, adaptation, physical adaptation, and behavioral adaptation. Click each word to find out more about it.
Well, let's talk about these for a minute. So an environment is the place that an animal lives in, the things that are in it, whether it's trees or sand or water. It's the place and all the things in it that an animal lives in. Adaptation, we've talked about that, is something an animal does or has that helps it survive. Instinct was in yesterday's lesson. It's something an animal is born knowing how to do. Physical adaptation, something on the animal that helps it survive. Behavioral adaptation, something the animal does to help it survive.
The mimic octopus impersonates other organisms. By changing its appearance, behavior, and even its skin texture, it can mimic a sea anemone, a flounder, the toxic lionfish, or the venomous sea snake. Mimicry helps animals survive by helping them avoid predators or capture prey. It is one of many kinds of adaptations that help living things survive in their environment. An environment is all the living and non-living things that surround an organism. What is your environment like? There are many different types of environments besides the one you live in. Organisms live in all of them. Click the images to see some examples. Brrr! The Arctic tundra is cold. It's also treeless and has little rainfall. Part of its soil is permanently frozen. Imagine what you would need in order to survive in this environment. Some of the organisms that live here are low-growing shrubs and moss. Because of the lack of rainfall and big temperature changes, few plants grow in the desert. Abundant rainfall in a temperate forest allows trees to grow tall. This type of environment has 4 distinct seasons: summer, fall, winter, and spring. A forest canopy is the uppermost layer of a forest where the crowns of the trees meet. Trees that grow to the canopy get the most sunlight and rain. Some organisms live their whole lives at the top layer of the forest, never coming down to the ground. A freshwater river has fast-moving water. Plants live in shallow areas and on banks. Deep-sea hydrothermal vents are cracks near the bottom of the ocean floor where water comes into contact with hot melted rock below the surface and becomes superheated. This environment has high temperatures and no sunlight. At one point, scientists believed that organisms would not be able to survive in such harsh conditions. We now know that a variety of organisms thrive near deep-sea hydrothermal vents. Tide pools are found in rocky areas along the edge of the ocean. Tide pools are swept by strong waves when ocean levels rise with the tides, and they dry out at low tide. Some organisms live in dark underground environments.
All right.
You've learned that organisms are adapted to a variety of environments. What characteristic of both the Arctic tundra and a desert environment would make finding a low-growing shrub in either environment likely? Click your response.
Okay, well, it has to be Arctic tundra and desert. Why might you find a low-growing shrub in either the Arctic tundra or a desert environment? Well, cold temperatures. It's going to grow low to the ground to stay warm.
That's not right.
Well,
The Arctic tundra has very cold temperatures, but the desert can get very hot. Try again.
okay, so it's not either or. It has to be both. High temperatures wouldn't be it then because the Arctic tundra is not hot. Low rainfall, yeah, I believe it said in the tundra there's very little rainfall.
You've got it. Low rainfall is a characteristic of both the Arctic tundra and a desert environment. The dry climate keeps plants from growing very large in both regions. One type of adaptation is a physical adaptation. Physical adaptations are parts of an animal's or plant's body structure that help the organism survive in its environment. Click each picture to see some examples of physical adaptations. Frogs are adapted to live in both wet and dry environments. When frogs are young, they have tails and gills for living underwater. As frogs mature, they grow lungs and legs that allow them to live on land. The white winter fur of the Arctic fox makes the fox difficult to see in the snow during the cold Arctic months. This camouflage keeps the Arctic fox safe from predators while allowing it to sneak up on its food. The long, sharp bill of the egret allows it to catch fish from the water. Did you know that under its white fur, the skin of a polar bear is actually black? This allows the polar bear's skin to absorb heat from the sun. Some insects use camouflage to blend in with their background. Many animals look like twigs, leaves, or bark in their environment. This plant hopper looks just like the leaf on which it is found. The way organisms act can also help them survive. A behavioral adaptation is something an organism does to help it survive. An instinct is one type of behavioral adaptation. An instinct is an inherited behavior an animal knows how to do without having to learn it. Click on the pictures to see some examples. Vervet monkeys in Africa respond to the presence of predators by giving a warning call to nearby monkeys. The alarm call is different depending on whether the predator is a snake, a leopard, or an eagle. This is learned behavior. This opossum can make itself look and smell like it's dead. The opossum displays this instinctive behavioral adaptation to keep safe when it feels threatened. The opossum's predators may not attack an animal that looks as if it's already dead. Caribou live in Arctic environments during the spring and summer. During the cold winter months, caribou migrate to warmer climates in the south. Caribou are born with the instinct to migrate. Orangutans build sleeping nests in trees each night out of branches and leaves. Sleeping in the trees can help keep the orangutan safe from predators while the orangutans sleep. This is a learned behavior. Squirrels bury nuts during warmer months so that the animals will have food throughout the winter. This is an instinctive behavioral adaptation that keeps the squirrels from going hungry when their food is scarce. This lemming lives in the cold Arctic region. It burrows under the snow to stay warm during the winter months. Now that you know more about different types of adaptations, behavioral and physical, try your hand at determining which is which. Sort these adaptations according to whether they are physical or behavioral. Drag each image to the correct box.
All right, well, we'll start with these caribou. They're migrating. Is migration on their body or something they do? Something they do, so it's behavior. Squirrel, he's burying nuts. So is it something he does or something on his body? Something he does, so it's a behavior. Changing body shapes. Well, that's something on your body, right? So that's a physical adaptation. The bill of this bird is sharp and pointy. It's on the body, so it's physical. Your body looks like a leaf. That's a physical adaptation. You're playing dead. That's something you do, so that's behavioral.
Great job! Physical adaptations are body parts that help an organism survive. Behavioral adaptations are ways that organisms act to help them survive. Some organisms live in environments with little or no light, while others live in areas with lots of light. What do you think might be some adaptations for living in these two very different environments? Click each photo to see some examples. Shrimp found at deep-sea hydrothermal vents use eyes on their backs, but these aren't the typical eyes of shrimp found in a light-filled environment. Instead, they're more like spots that can sense heat. These large eye spots on their backs allow shrimp to sense where they are in relation to the hydrothermal vents. Hawks have very well-developed eyes that help them see prey from far away. Their eyes are an adaptation that allows them to survive in a light-filled environment. The star-nosed mole relies on its sense of touch to find its way in the dark. The mole has specialized tentacles that surround its nose to help it find food. Because its tentacles are so successful at locating food, the star-nosed mole is known as the fastest eater of the mammal world. Plants have a very important adaptation to living in a light-filled environment. Plants can make food for themselves by capturing energy from sunlight in their leaves. Imagine being able to fix yourself a hamburger just by standing in the sun.
What's that called when they make their own food? It's photosynthesis, right? Don't forget that. They take the sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water, and they make the food.
The gazelle relies on its eyes to see if predators are near. Seeing danger before it is too close gives the gazelle time to move to a safer area. Adaptations allow organisms to live in different environments. The star-nosed mole is found in wet lowland areas where the mole digs through dark tunnels to find its food. Click the highlighted areas to learn about a few of the star-nosed mole's adaptations to its environment.
He's a funny-looking guy, isn't he?
The fur of the star-nosed mole is thick and water-repellent, helping the mole move around in the dark, wet environment where it lives. The claws of the star-nosed mole are an adaptation that helps it to dig tunnels. Eyesight is not needed in the dark. The star-nosed mole is virtually blind, with underdeveloped eyes. It relies on the tentacles of its star-shaped nose to find its way around. It didn't use its eyes to find the earthworm it is eating in this picture. The star-nosed mole's teeth are shaped like tweezers to help the mole grab the small food it eats, small insect larvae and worms. The star-nosed mole is named for the tentacles that make up its star-shaped nose. It uses these sensitive tentacles to find food quickly in the dark environment where it lives. Desert environments have little rain, and many have extremely high daytime temperatures and cold nights. Organisms that live here, such as the desert tortoise, have to be adapted to these conditions in order to survive. Click the parts of the video to learn more. Deserts don't get a lot of rain. Organisms here have to be able to survive without much water. Desert tortoises have been known to go over a year without drinking water. They do this by storing water in their large bladders. The tortoise's front legs have sharp, claw-like scales that help it to dig burrows. The tortoise spends almost 95% of its life in underground burrows. These burrows stay cool during the summer heat and warm at night. This allows the tortoise to survive the extreme desert temperatures. The tortoise can eat cactus and other plants that grow in the desert. The tortoise's thick skin and shell protect it from cactus needles. Organisms have specific adaptations to living in their environments. Can you choose which adaptations are used for living in the desert? Click your response.
Okay. Low-growing plants, we know that's one.
You've got it. Shrubs living in very dry deserts tend to be low-growing to conserve water.
Brown coloring, well, the sand is brown. That seems to make sense.
Way to go! Organisms that live in the desert might be brown in coloration to blend with their environment.
I don't think it would be white fur that wouldn't help it in the desert. I don't think for sure. But hard coverings, maybe for like eating cactuses and things like that.
This desert organism has tough scales and hard nails on its foot to protect it from the heat and the spiny, thorny plants in the desert. Organisms that live in the desert might have sharp nails for digging burrows underground, and they might be brown in coloration to blend with their environment. Shrubs living in very dry deserts tend to be low-growing to conserve water. Think about the desert tortoise. Can you identify which of its adaptations to the desert are physical and which are behavioral? Type your response here. Then click OK.
All right. So what are some physical adaptations? You can say them out loud there where you are. Well, it's shell. Okay. It's thick skin. Keeps it protected. It has its toes to dig or protect it from, I guess, sharp things on the ground. What else do you think physical? It's eyes, maybe? Okay, what are some behavioral adaptations of a turtle? And they move slowly. That probably keeps them from using a whole lot of energy or getting too hot, right? They hide in their shells for protection, something they do. All right.
The desert tortoise is uniquely adapted to live in its environment. A few of its physical adaptations to the desert are its large bladder for storing water and sharp claws for digging burrows. The tortoise's thick skin and shell are also physical adaptations. A behavioral adaptation of the tortoise is that it spends most of its life underground in burrows to survive the high desert temperatures. Sometimes you can tell by looking at an organism what environment it might live in. Can you match each physical adaptation to the environment where the organism might be found? Click and drag the type of environment to its adaptation.
Okay, well, dark tunnels. This looks like that star-nosed mole. We know it digs in tunnels, we heard. A leafy area, probably the animal that looks like a leaf, right? Water. This animal looks like it's got a tail for paddling through the water, maybe webbed feet. And snow, whatever this animal is, looks like it's got white coloring.
Great job! You recognized some of the adaptations that organisms use to survive in different types of environments. An Arctic fox's white fur helps it hide in a snowy environment. A star-nosed mole's tentacles help it find food and find its way in the dark. A tadpole's tail and gills allow it to survive in water. And a plant hopper's color and shape help it blend in with the plants around it. You've learned a lot about how organisms are adapted to survive in different environments. Let's review the main ideas from the lesson. An environment is all the living and non-living things that surround an organism. There are many different types of environments, such as deserts, Arctic tundra, deep-sea hydrothermal vents, and underground caves. Organisms have adaptations that help them survive in their environments. Organisms have physical and behavioral adaptations. Physical adaptations are body parts or features that help an organism survive. Behavioral adaptations are ways that organisms act to help them survive. An example of a physical adaptation is having white fur in an Arctic area. An example of a behavioral adaptation is burrowing underground in a hot desert environment. Now that you've finished this lesson, if you wish, you can go back and review any part of the lesson again.
Okay, well, we are going to stop right there for the lesson. Now, you do have a vocabulary lesson today you need to do. So go and do your vocabulary assignment with these words that we've been working on now for 2 whole days. Make sure you use that crossword in your book. It will help you greatly make a 100 on the science. And after last week's vocabulary, some of you need a 100 on the science lesson, science assignment. So get that done. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on more adaptations, and we're going to watch a really cool video on animal adaptations. Okay? So go do your vocabulary assignment and have a great day.